everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. We're excited to have a referral here today from Lowell Applebaum. That's how we started out our year with Lowell. He was great. We got to talk about strategic leadership and such. And today we have Alexis Redmond joining us. So Alexis, nice to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Erin.
Yes, absolutely. Lucas, my fearless co-host. Good to see you again.
Hello. Thank you for joining, Alexis.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start out with just a little background information so our audience can get to know you a little bit better, Alexis, but then I know we've got some fun topics to talk through. So just to allow yourself a little bit of a humble brag, you are the managing director, is that right, of Manufacturers Alliance right now? Okay, and this is a relatively new job, and so congratulations on that. But one of the things that Lowell pointed out is that you've received a couple of awards in the industry being recognized for your skill set and for your career accomplishments. And yes, big congratulations. And being a woman of color, I'm assuming, and being 40 under 40, I mean, these are all like great accomplishments. And knowing that the association industry, we constantly talking about is like, yeah, they're at a big, change in generation, change in leadership moment. Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, how have those types of awards helped bolster your career? But then how are you feeling about what that means for those that are around you or coming up behind you?
Yeah, no, when it comes like to the recognitions, it's one of those things that I appreciate it. I'm humble about it, but coming into associations, I tripped and fell into it like so many others. Like I got my law degree. I knew I wanted to serve people, and I initially thought it was going to be in like traditional nonprofits. And then I came to the DC area, and while in grad school, I was a contractor, and they kept placing me in associations, and I just tripped and fell. I just fell in love with it. And what's kind of kept me in this space is the community of leadership and support. And I found a great wealth of people who are curious and have passion and who care. And so I kind of said, I just kind of followed them into the rooms that they've been in, where it's like, hey, what are you doing over there? Which has led to, different award recognitions, because I've created this incredible circle and almost a board of directors that holds me accountable and encourages me to push and push harder. Like, if you can see my Zoom naming, I have a lot of, like, as I call it, name glitter, but it's because I love to learn.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, no, I just absolutely love to learn. And some things with a lot of these awards programs is that they include, scholarships and getting the opportunity to like engage further with like Associations Forum, or I'm a DELP scholar, so I got to engage further with ASAE. And it's, yes, it's a recognition, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to keep learning, keep connecting, keep growing. And when it comes to, future generations, it's really just a matter of putting myself out there as a beacon that's willing to connect to others. I'm by nature traditionally introverted. And I always say, like, when people are like, really, you're an introvert? And I was like, yeah, I would rather have the one-on-one deep connection than be in a room of people and like work in the whole room. Nope. With my current role, like we're entering our event season, and I've told people, I was like, I'll go for the week, I'll be smiley, but that next weekend I'm sitting on my couch watching Netflix and eating like Smart Pop. And then that's how I'm going to recharge my battery. But what that's led to is that I've had these really great connections with people who are more senior to me, and even when there's not a need that I have, what I do is I absorb their insights, I absorb their wisdom, and I try to connect them to others. So, we're all a great big community that can help each other. And, if you have opportunities to be so privileged to be recognized, use that as an opportunity to bring other people into your space, like welcome them openly and willingly. And I just get to learn for free. It's great.
Love that. What a wonderful perspective.
Amazing. None of that surprised me. That was the first time I'd heard that part of your story, Alexis, and your glitter, as you called it. I love that. It totally makes sense of what I know and we've read, and we talked a little bit before the show started about your sort of love for systems and how that has helped every organization that you've been a part of. That completely makes sense. So I'm a systems person also, lifelong learner, love to read and grow, and if you don't, what are you doing, sort of thing. So I'd love, we talked a little bit again before the show. I'd love to hear sort of your take on systems and how that can be sort of falling in line with a lifelong learner. And
yeah, no, when it comes to systems, I mean, I am natural type A. And so like there always needs to be an order to things. But like my bachelor's is in sociology and anthropology, and I only picked that because I spent the time just reading through the course catalog, and I flagged every course that I thought I wanted to take just in the entire course catalog. So I went through everything from engineering through like zoology, just to see like which degree made sense. And when I got to the end, it was socio-anthro, and I love studying about cultures and then people. And when you think about the systems, systems, when you think about technology systems, it's this conduit talks to this conduit and this process works with this process. When it comes to people, it's really about acknowledging kind of those traditions, those taboos, those norms within groups, understanding how that interplay works together. And being an association executive, when you think about how to lattice those elements together, what it can do is be really freeing for organizations that are on limited resources, because if you have good processes in place, you can focus more on the intentional connection with people and less on the, I have to do this Excel sheet, I need to like create this mail merge, I need to like, do the Salesforce process. Instead, you're focused on the member and really driving that value and those things that people care about. They, the wealth of a person-to-person connection. And so when it comes to like organizations that I've been with, that's what I tend to do. I naturally come into a space and say, like, is this in the most orderly, and like, are we being the most efficient? Are we working to our highest ability? And coming from like traditional community-based nonprofits, I'm used to being MacGyver, where it's like you have like a paper clip and a shoestring, and it's like, here, host a gala. And so
make it work, solve the problem, right?
And so that requires using your tools to their highest capability. And to do that, you kind of have to learn and be willing to constantly learn about what's the new iteration, what's the new approach, finding people that are also using them and figuring out how they've created either workarounds or enhancements that are really beneficial to the organizations. So when I look at systems, it's really about, not just using them because like, oh, it's cool. It's really about using them so that you can focus on the things that matter. And, for so many groups, that's the hardest part, is that, you're wrestling with the fear of the system, instead of saying, hey, I need this tool to, build this connection or to do this thing or to host this opportunity. So I'm going to become the master of that system so I can focus on the stuff that requires the creativity and like the people connection.
Let you do what you do best. And I love the sentiment, right? So systems, people think technical systems, to your point. And typically there's a manual for that, right? You can go open, here's the technical systems, here's how it works. The people systems, it's a more complex puzzle, and there's often no manual for that, but figuring it out and working those elements together is more challenging, but more impactful, I would say.
Yeah, and that's where I had to say this, the strength of being an introvert kind of comes into effect, because we don't really want to like be talking all the time or absorbing. And so it's really good to make sure you have like those introverts on your team that are just listening, like, coming into spaces where members are doing stuff and just listening. I think, so coming from the American Speech, Language and Hearing Association before coming to the Manufacturers Alliance, I used to have long conversations with our social media manager and our community manager about what they were seeing inside of our HighLogic system, what they were seeing on our social media platforms, because they didn't have to talk. They could just like absorb, what are the members saying? How are they saying it? And as an organization, we could then use those insights to say, hey, we need to tone check our communications because members are saying this, or what we think is a phrase that they care about, they have no idea what that is. So we need to use their language, because if not, we're like intentionally missing them. Like, no, we're going to make them learn it the way that we're saying it. No, we need to listen to this community that said, hey, we trust you to lead us. Now you should know us and give us value. And so that's where, if you have good systems in place and you have people that are not wanting to interject, but listen, you can then get all these great insights. And even if that listening is coming from like AI, that could be fine. But then you have the battle of ensuring that you're not adding in a bias to that data and not saying, I'm going to filter this through my lens and change all the meanings. It's like, no, just if there's an emotion there, if there's a feeling there, if there's a meaning that members have, just take it and then understand how can we address that? How can we look at that? Like when they say community, what do they mean by community? When they say transparency, what do they mean by transparency?
Right. Ask more questions and make it not so much just shoving something down their throat and you're gonna, this is gonna be great because we said it was, not we want it to be great because you say it is.
Right. I think it's really interesting too, that you're like, what the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about systems is like decision fatigue. So, as a woman, this, like we've been advised so many times to pick the 5 pieces of clothing we want to wear in 25 different ways. And that helps us reduce the decision fatigue we face by having to figure out what we want to wear to work every day and things like that. But developing systems in place for those types of things so that we can focus our energy on the things that we need more creativity around. I'm curious, because we spoke a little bit about the fact that you are a woman of color, you were 40 under 40. So there's a lot of things there that are really aspirational. And how are you thinking about using systems within your organization that will even help the DE&I conversation? Like, have you seen that that's something that also allows organizations to culturally work better?
It is. I mean, coming from an organization like ASHA that had these very specific structures, I mean, they're almost 100 years old, we were able to have spaces to convene and really tease out ideas. I was a part of their employee resource group, so their diversity team, where we were creating staff programming. And so coming into an organization that, the Manufacturers Alliance, who knows that D&I is a challenge within their industry and they're figuring out how to address it in their profession, coming in, I'm like, hey, we need to start an employee resource group. And for them, it was like, well, shouldn't we start with thinking about like the value of the programs or this or that? And it's like, well, no, we need to talk about it. Because for us to be able to teach and engage our members, we have to figure out, well, what do we know and what don't we know? Like you need to know what your unknowns are. And then you have to go through that journey of curiosity of like, well, where can we learn? Who can we bring to the table to hear their perspectives, hear their insight? Are there partnerships that we can make? Because then as we kind of do the outside of the house communication and education, we are being able to push out with a kind of thought of like what that learning journey looks like. I think sometimes as associations, like we want to put our members on these learning journeys, but if we're not actively being learners, we forget the steps. We forget that, like, before we knew that 2 pieces of bread and peanut butter and jelly make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, we're just like, here are these things and why are they together?
Yeah.
And so I know that seems really kind of, elementary, but when it comes to learning, and particularly adult learning, we are all multitasking and our attention spans have shortened. And so when it comes to particularly looking at DE&I, a lot of people get so overwhelmed with the weight of it that they get trapped in the emotional space and they don't get into the space of, okay, now we need to take the first step and then we need to take the step after that. And then we need to keep it reevaluating, because right now for a lot of groups, DE&I is looked at as, maybe just gender and pay equity. It might be looked at as just race. And so for some, they're staying very much in the superficial space of DE&I. But right. DE&I can also include, depending on context, ageism. It can also include disabilities and not just the visible disabilities. And so the thing is that if we get into the space of understanding the context of how are we being more intentionally inclusive for anyone who may have something that might other them from the group,
right?
Like what other otherings are there, then we're going to be able to dismantle that. But if we're too focused on just what we can see, what's going to happen is that we're going to start to tokenize. We're going to start to just be in this space of doing what seems easy versus doing the deep, hard work that's going to allow, the systems and the society to work better, be it your staff or be it your membership or just our greater society. So when it comes to DE&I, it's just one of those things where everyone has to give each other some grace and space and keep taking earnest steps forward. Even when you stumble, even when you've done it awkwardly, just keep taking those steps forward. And so like with my current organization, that's what we're going through. We're going through that journey of discovery, that journey of, there's a infographic that talks about the journey through projects, and like where you have like the happiness and the joy that goes with like the muck and the mire and like the despair and like feeling like it's going to fail, and then you kind of start coming back up again.
Out of the trough, yeah.
Everyone needs to get used to that, because when it comes to people, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, we're going to always be on that roller coaster of like, okay, we've got okay, this seems like a good idea. Then there's the actual processing. What needs to happen with this? Having the reckoning for who and where we might owe allegiance or owe apologies, because every organization has done something where you stepped on someone or something happened. So, how do we fix that? But then how do we keep expanding the definition and keep addressing it as the ripples go on? Because people are constantly changing, and what we think we know and understand about our culture and society is going to change tomorrow. And so just be ready to serve that and connect with that and be people, not just like, here's an archetype and we'll just stay in the archetype.
Right. I can't say enough how much I love, just stepping back for a second, how much you represent, Alexis, a generation, a evolution within our industry of this type of thinking that, hey, something was done 100 years ago, this might be working. And then this newer concept, it really shouldn't be that new, but the newer concept in generational movement is, hey, this has been working for 100 years. How can we improve it? How can we take that step forward? How can we not just stick with the status quo? Because maybe that wasn't good to begin with. I think there are some things that aren't broken and don't need to be fixed, but a lot of it does. And we should always be evaluating, how is it broken? Even if it's not perceived as broken, we should still continue asking the questions like, how could we improve this system, this process, this communication, like the whole deal? And I think the industry, again, you roll it back, it was a little bit of status quo. And a lot of associations found themselves too far past the point of, hey, we need to start focusing on diversity, or we need to start focusing on younger members, or fill in the blank. And unfortunately, for some of them, they were 10 or 15 years too late. And so if you don't constantly have the question, and then it's like building a website, as soon as you're done, you just sort of keep doing it, right? It doesn't ever stop. Like, that's a mentality that you just have to continue. But you know, the people, the website's done, we can put our feet up, like we have a website now. Like, well,
it's like, what is done? There is no done.
It's just getting started, and it doesn't stop. Like, this is sort of like infinity. But
yeah, I mean, it's always that refinement. It's always that improvement. I mean, it's one of those things where people are always very quick to, like, you know, you want the satisfaction of checking the thing off your list.
Right.
But the thing is that it keeps growing, it keeps evolving. I mean, I have a 2-year-old, and every day we think, oh, we got it. We know what foods he likes. We know what is his favorite show. And he's like, Psych, I hate that now.
Yep.
Yeah. We are parents of older children. We can tell you, you will not figure it out.
But the thing is that if that's what's happening with our children, as parents, we understand that.
Right.
Like, the second we think we've got it, it changes. If we thought about our memberships a bit like that, like, hey, they're going to evolve, they're going to change, something new is going to happen, and we just have to be okay with it. If anything, it humbles us, because we don't, you know, we don't get the ego of, oh, we're perfect and we're the captain of the industry, but instead we're in that space of, what's the new challenge? What's the new idea? You know, if groups have built really incredible teams, your team is going to be excited to take on the challenge.
Right.
But if you created a space where, you know, learning and exploration and risk isn't welcomed and championed, because it could innovate something incredible, then you might be a little bit more weary to not take those steps, because you're like, oh, I don't know if we can do this.
Yeah.
But
I love
so
that.
many great groups doing cool stuff, because they're just like, you know what, we can try.
Yeah, that's right. You got to try. We have an old adage we use internally. It's all growth ends. And some people take that sentiment to say, well, okay, at some point it's just all going to end. I'm like, no, that's the point in which you inflect and pivot in order to keep
the S curve,
keep growing. But the growth, if you will, ends, or the success ends, and then it just has to change. That's how life works.
Yeah. What I love here is that, and we've got to wrap up our time, so I want to be respectful of your time you've given us so generously. But what I love here is, and what I'm hearing is, a lot of people will hear systems, processes, and think very rigid, you know, boundaries and things that you can't change. And what I like is that you're applying the philosophy around a systems focus that actually allows for freedom and expansion and growth. And a lot of people, I think, if they aren't type A, as you say, you're self-proclaimed, they will see systems as very limiting. And what I hear you saying is, systems aren't limiting. They are helpful in actually creating the openness and the ability to innovate and grow. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that most people will build a system or process, and because, you know, like Lucas said, it's like, okay, we're done, we did it.
Right.
Well, the thing is that every system then loops into a feedback loop.
Right.
And so the thing is it's this ecosystem. It's going to go in a circle. And so the thing is that when you get to this point of thinking, okay, we're done, that's when it's like, okay, well, let's listen again. Let's get a feedback. Let's get a new insight. Let's get a new idea. And keep moving it through the system. And so, you know, you can have space for those that are structured and those that are creatives, and creating those spaces where, you know, you're going to hit that inflection point allows that kind of that shift of the balance from like doing structure output to learning, thinking, creating.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's great. And frankly, everyone, we want systems that allow us to go back into feedback loops, because I hate to tell you, none of us would have jobs if we didn't have things to keep doing. Might I remind everyone, that's what our jobs are. We keep doing and we keep exploring. And so, hey, it's just also beneficial to be able to put things back into a feedback loop. So Alexis, what a joy it's been to have you. What a wonderful and effusive personality you have. So I'm so glad that we got to meet you. Thank you, Lowell, for introducing us. As we always do at the end of our shows, is we ask our current guests to give us some ideas around someone we might want to talk to that our listeners could really benefit from hearing from. And I'm just wondering if you have a suggestion for us.
I do. I have a good friend of mine, Natasha Goodwin from ITI, who is their Senior Director of Membership. And now thinking about it, there's also another one, Haley Jones, who's with the American Staffing Association.
Okay.
And she's their Director of Membership Engagement. And both women have worked on DE&I within their organizations. They've also built out whole new member engagement strategies.
Oh,
and
cool.
I think that, for all groups, they're in my board of directors. They keep me accountable, and I'm always learning from them. So I hope that others can learn from them.
That sounds
Great.
fantastic. And American Staffing, I'm sure they haven't had anything to do here in the past 24 months, right? Had their feet up, right? Nothing going on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us. We're super excited to investigate those referrals, and we will see you all next time on another 6 Degrees of Associations. Thanks, Lucas. Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you, Alexis.